A large number of recommendations have been made to reduce delays. The reports of the Law Commission, National Police Commission and Annual Conference of Chief Justices must have also been to be discussed as a matter on a number of occasions. Numerous seminars have been held. The latest one is seminar on criminal justice system organized by the Law Commission and the Bar Council of India. But the fact is, no one has yet cut the Gordian knot. Now, privacy and communication. The arrangements for facilitating communication between prisoners and their relatives, friends and legal advisors leave much to be desired. Many of these aspects have been dealt in the Mullah Committee report and deserve immediate implementation. Hygiene. Overcrowding has aggravated the problem of hygiene. In many jails, conditions are appalling. At the tehsil level jails, not even rudimentary convenience have been provided. System of jail visitors. The system of jail visitors exists only on paper. It has not proved effective in practice. Visitors, including judicial and non-judicial members, pay cursory attention to the peripheral matters only and do not take pains to go into the details of major problems, like the long and overdue detention of under trials, inadequacies in medical care, problems faced by female prisoners, etc. There should be a system of accountability for visitors who are privileged to look at and review the actual working of jails behind the high walls. Administrative matters. The Mullah Committee had made the following recommendations. The state secretaries do not have the requisite expertise in prison administration to assist the government in taking appropriate policy decision. The senior officers having experience of correctional administration and the requisite expertise should be posted in the Department of Prisons. An officer should invariably head the Department of Prisoners and Correctional Services, whose creation the Mullah Committee has recommended from this department. At present, officers belong to the IAS, IPS, and jail departments are all being appointed as head of jail administration. Now, the role of NGOs. There is a considerable scope for NGOs and voluntary agencies to work in the field of treatment, aftercare, and rehabilitation of offenders. It would be desirable to assign a role for them as visualized by the Mullah Committee. Now, the conclusion. The prison jurisprudence developed in the recent years has served to empower prisoners where once they were disempowered. Now, it remains non-existent for a large percent of illiterate, ignorant and impoverished masses of this country, and it did not change substantially the position of prisoners. Now, every prison should have a psychological clinic attached to it. Moral education should be provided voluntarily, and regular visits of religious teachers with a sympathetic disposition should be taken help of, because a good personality can magnetize other people. The prison staff should have officers who are skilled in social welfare work with a heart full of sympathy and a soul with a disposition to do good and serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Prisoners and reforming the prison like that. Both this health right as well as prison reform requires some expenditure, and we have to see some cooperation between the union government and the state governments, and we will have this economic rights and cooperative federalism in India by Sri Abhyuday Anand. Please.
Respected Chairperson, distinguished speakers on the dais, distinguished delegates, and my fellow students. I have chosen the topic economic rights because globalization was initiated on economic considerations. To conclude my speech briefly as far as possible and to stick to this time schedule allotted to me, I'll present my paper in the form of statistics. Some reasons as to why LPG concept was adopted in the year 1991. I can state that some of the reasons which forced the policymakers so as to change the policy adopted for the last 5 decades was the reasons that the forex were hardly $1.2 billion. There was no money for the 8th plan, which was supposed to start by the year 1991, and the country had to go for annual plans for 2 years, and the 8th plan started only in the year 1992. No money was there for servicing of debts, and India was on the verge of bankruptcy. PSUs had not shown any growth or were in losses. Majority of the PSUs, which were 240 PSUs, 200 were in losses or more than that. and the remaining were in profit not by competition but by virtue of tax benefits and other favors given by the government. Hence, for economic growth and for the welfare and to create resources for the welfare purpose, India had to move in for globalization or privatization. After this 17 years of the change in policy, some of the changes which I can cite are, as on December 1st, 2007, the Indian forex reserves are US dollars 277 billion. India is number 4 in the world in purchasing power parity among the nations. India is recognized as an economic powerhouse in Asia. The World Bank has designated India as a less indebted country due to the fact that the medium-term debts of India is around $230 billion and the forex reserves which India is having is around $270 billion. So it's not that India is debt-free, but World Bank has designated India as a less indebted country. The investment which is proposed in the 11th five-year plan is around $300 billion and the power sector has an investment of about $11 billion. So this is a rosy picture of the globalization, and it is not to say that globalization or privatization is a bed of roses. Of course, every concept, every policy has a disadvantages or problems of its own, and some of the problems which we are facing are concentration of wealth. Multilateral agencies have been interfering in domestic policies. Government has to fulfill WTO norms in spite of the fact that in some aspects it is hurting the domestic players. Aid-giving agencies like World Bank, IMF impose conditions. It has led to serious violations of human rights. As far as economic rights are concerned, from yesterday it has been said what are the disadvantages which has arisen, like farmer suicide, patents due to the product patents, especially in the drug industry. Drugs have become costly and generic versions of drugs have not been available to the patients at cheap costs. And on industrial workers, due to the concept of right sizing or golden handshake, there has been a loss in the PSU sector. And due to the huge inflow of foreign direct investment, there is a cost of increase in the cost of living, and the prices of essential commodities have grown up. Of course, these disadvantages are subject to justifications. It's not that it cannot be controlled or it cannot be avoided. But as far as the as far as the advantages, these advantages would not have been achieved as there was no policy change in the year 1991. So what I would like to suggest is, if these disadvantages which are as a result of globalization or LPG are addressed, then human rights violation would be minimum, or there can be steps which can be taken which are so as to address the problems arising. So who has to do this? It is the state. The state has to see that the human rights which are violated due to the concept of globalization are addressed. This is because Article 12 includes both central and state, and Part 4 of the Indian Constitution and Article 36 states the state under the definition of Article 12 for the purpose of fundamental rights is also the state for the purpose of directive principles, which includes economic rights. The state has to act as a buffer between those who cannot withstand the vagaries of this globalization. It has to support those who cannot compete with the other agencies. It has to see that the domestic sector is protected from the unfair practices done by the international players. So, in connecting these things, I have somewhat introduced the concept of cooperative federalism in the protection of economic rights. This is because without the fulfillment of economic rights, there can be no civil and political rights. For a person who has no food, water and shelter, he is not interested in things like freedom of association, freedom of right to speech and expression or assembly, etc., etc. First thing which a common man asks is for food and water and shelter. So until these basic things are fulfilled, until these basic necessities are fulfilled, political and civil rights has no meaning for him. So in this concept, my argument is that federalism and cooperative federalism plays a meaningful role. Federalism influences human rights because, in the first place, it has a requirement of democracy. It's not necessary for a unitary, there are unitary states with good human rights records, and there are also federal states. How I am making federalism important in human rights? Because democracy is a precondition for federalism. And where there is democracy, there is good human rights records. So in this way, I intend to connect federalism with human rights. And the other reason why federalism plays an important role in the protection of human rights in the present era is that federalism promotes multiculturalism. Recognition of multiculturalism itself is a recognition of the fact that each state or each area has a different requirement or responses to be generated so as to meet the shortcomings of the particular region. So once this fact is recognized that each region has different requirements to be addressed, the responses to be generated to address those requirements also differ. And federalism in this way, through multiculturalism, enhances the protection of human rights in this present era. Apart from these two things, the essentials of federalism like independent judiciary plays also an important role in this regard. I will not be speaking much on that because since yesterday lectures have been delivered so as to highlight the role of the judiciary in the protection of human rights. So since independent courts are a precondition for federalism, it can be said federalism is important for human rights. Coming to the next point as to how cooperative federalism is important for the protection of economic rights, it can be seen that the present stage is the era of coalition. No single party is in power both at the center and the states. So it can happen that for political reasons the measures implemented by the center is not implemented by the states due to political reasons. For example, in economic terms, about 2 years back it could be seen that the introduction of the value-added tax, even though it were to be beneficial for the states, and the center promised the states to reimburse the losses which may be incurred by the state, 5 opposition ruled states did not implement it only for political reasons. Apart from this, all the schemes which are framed by the center are implemented by the states or the local self-governments. For example, the National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, which is passed by the Parliament, has to be implemented by the states or the local self-government. Beneficiaries are identified by the states and the local self-governments. The midday meal program, the food provisions are provided by the center, but it has to be transported and cooked by the states. And like these instances, all the schemes which are initiated by the center are implemented by the states or the local self-governments. So here I bring about the importance of cooperative federalism between the center and the states so as to protect the rights of the people in this regard. Sir, how much time left, sir? Yeah. I would say, in spite of the achievements in this regard, there is a lot to be done. For example, the implementation of the National Rural Employment Program requires 20,000 crores per year. The subsidies for food, fertilizers and oil this year is supposed to cross 1 lakh crores. And the CAG report says that the pensions of the government servants would increase this year than the salaries of the existing government employees. Of course, these are all the welfare schemes. There is no way other for the state. But where are the resources to be bought? Where is the huge amount of money required for these projects to be bought? So certainly globalization and privatization has answers for this, but the thing is, it has to be carried on and implemented in a balancing way so as to address the requirements of the have-nots also. Thank you. I thank all the organizers and for your patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Abhijay, for making a mention of the definition of the state which is there in the Article 12 as well as in the Part 4. But Article 12 is very clear in this part unless the context otherwise requires. So in view of that, we are also having the provision under 39B and C for non-concentration of wealth and the distribution of resources. When these being to be implemented by a law made by the Parliament, Article 14 will not apply like that. We are having that different economic policy. What my suggestion is that if the recommendation of the Finance Commission being made must to be implemented, then automatically there will be a cooperative federalism like that. Thank you for your...
Due to shortage of time, I could not say about the Finance Commission. And in one sentence, it has been observed that the plan grants are granted on the recommendations of the Planning Commission and not the Finance Commission. Even though Finance Commission is there for the recognition, recommendation of measures for us the distribution of revenues between the center and states, it is always the Planning Commission's recommendations which has been observed. So it has been observed by the Finance Commission that a constitutional body like the Finance Commission cannot operate in this area of duplication. So it has been suggested by the Finance Commission that at least the Finance Commission can be made to recommend the principles on which the planning grants should be allotted to the states. Thank you.
Thank you for clarification. Now, the role of terrorist. For the practical approach, Professor Vasudev will take over the dais. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Jagdish. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Because the Bush took a challenge and now he is constructing the more than 110 stories. That is a challenge he took. I don't know, of course, the construction. What construction he want, I don't know, but he is constructing in the same place. But I suggest him that he should construct a building after creating Osama bin Laden burial ground in the same place. But he has forgotten, of course, still searching, but he is constructing a building, of course. But don't forget, my dear friends, beyond that, I'm saying that we lost 2 prime ministers. Tallest lady in the world, in the pride, reputation, they are the statesman, what I'm telling. Not tallest lady, of course. She administered the country nearly 18 years and she built a reputation of India and she sacrificed herself for the terrorism. And again, her son. Again, take the experience of Sri Lanka. Say they are fighting still. I will tell you, they are going to lose many, maybe Qadis, maybe Kakis. See, this is what occurring, say, in this world. And that's why, what I'm trying to say, the Osama bin Laden still at large, Ibrahim Dawood still at large, there are many terrorists still at large, but still the victims are at large now. There are many victims. And one thing you must understand, that terrorism and the human rights are pole apart. They cannot join together. Why? Because the terrorists have no right to snatch away the human rights. That is a basic thing. But they are creating victims in good number in the world. And what they are doing, they are destroying human society, human civilization, human culture, human values, and human existence. What they want is fear psychosis. And their own perception is of the social vision differs actually, the ideology. I think, excuse me for making this statement, what we have understood is Islamophobia. Islamophobia. And what we are saying is, in future, it is not just not America, I'm saying that. What we thought is anti-American cloud. It is just a war between Muslims and Christians. See, because of these ideologies, say we have seen Yugoslavia, we are seeing Sri Lanka because Buddhists and Tamilians, I'm saying the Sinhalese and Tamilians. The one question I'll try to raise, we have seen North Korea and South Korea, Czechoslovakia divided, Germany divided and there is unification, Bosnia divided, USSR divided, and then why Sinhalese are not allowing the Tamilians to divide themselves? because they have human rights, the principle self-determination. I am not advocating in favor of LTT, but why they are not allowing? When Rajapaksa, while addressing the United Nations, he made a statement, say, his government's recent military operation had been launched only to convince the tigers that it would not be possible for them to obtain a military victory. There is an obligation on the part of the state. They will not allow any military operation in the name of terrorism. Say that's why they cannot declare the victory over the Sri Lankan government. Say only with purpose where say operation actually is against LTT is taking place. And he also requested the United Nations to come together to create a universal law, say as far as the terrorism is concerned. He made a statement, called on the world body to conclude talks on a comprehensive convention on international terrorism. And because the Sri Lankan experience is more important for us, the India is also experiencing around the world, no country is now left, say, as far as the effect of terrorism is concerned. Now it will continue still. And that's why the responsibility on the United Nations organization to create as early as possible a universal rule with a universal jurisdiction. He may commit elsewhere, but like piracy, of course, like hijacking, so you must create a universal jurisdiction. That is the focusing point of this seminar or the agenda before the United Nations organizations. It tried its best in 2001, 1373 resolution number, 1456 in 2003, 1535 in 2004, 1624 2005. All these resolutions addressing the nations to pass relevant legislation domestically to fight against terrorism. But still I make a statement here itself. It is in Hindu, of course, we have come across editorial, political will to counter terror. That is what required. Internationally, nationally, what actually we are seeing, the dearth of political will to counter. That's why, see, apart from the terrorist, the other three persons also contributory factors. One is Kaki, Kadi, Kavi. They are the contributing factors. What we require is effective implementation of whatever the law is available in the country, of course. We said we have an Indian Penal Code, we have a special law, many things. But there are three questions arises even with regard to the legislation. Suppose we have a TADA and then POTA also done away, and we have come to the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967 amended and saying that, and there are Communal Violence Act is on the floor, and the politicians, they say always we are on the agenda. Now, three questions: whether the legal system should be strengthened with special laws against terrorist activities. If special laws are made, then what are the safeguards to ensure that these laws are not misused? How to make the security forces accountable in their anti-terrorist operations? We have seen in the J&K, Jammu and Kashmir, how our forces are abusing their powers. In the country, of course. And now, accountability is a question, but we don't have any answer, because Afzals is one example where we divide each other. We have a joke actually, when some people were sitting here, Aati aagaya, haudu aane barta ide anta heltare. A donkey aagaya, donkey barta ide. A aadmi aagaya. Very difficult, they divided. A aadmi or a saitan. We are talking about the saitan. Say, hey, a human being, a man, ಅಥವಾ ಆದ್ಮಿ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಆದ್ಮಿ ಅಂತ ನೋಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಆಗ್ತಿಲ್ಲ, ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ say in him we have a saitan. It is very difficult to identify whether it is a man or a saitan. That is a difficulty. We can identify the animal, but we are not able to identify the reality, the character of this man. That is why we have a saitan here. We have to fight against the saitan. We want laws to fight against this. And this is an anti-humanity cloud. That's why we say that when all are happy, I am happy. When all are moral, I am moral, of course. Then how to make this reality, of course? When all are happy, in front of us there are victims. How can I say I am happy? When there are immoralities, how can I say I am moral? See, this is what happening in the world of courts. So there are, I can mention about the few legislations apart from Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, say National Security Act, Punjab Disturbed Areas Act, Punjab Armed Forces Special Powers Act, like that. Say even in Manipur you are saying, say special ordinance made and there is a hue and cry, the politicians. They divide. With regard to Afzal, as I said, we divided. They said no death sentence. Pardoning, say the president should pardon him. Say each and every terrorist, I'm saying that if you divide, say you are supporting this Satan, how can you justify that? Can the law justify? When the people, some group actually justifies in the name of